Welcome back. This is part 4 of your simultaneous interpretation module. Let's reflect on your last recording. How did you feel during the exercise? Was there any improvement? Were you able to breathe and relax and calm a little bit more by having the collage? A lot of my students report that once they give themselves permission to always stay behind the speaker, once they train to stay behind the speaker and not be concerned about catching up, they feel more relaxed and they're able to improve their performance. How fast was the speaker going this time, you think? How fast were you going? Were you able to match your speed to the one of the speaker? If you could always stay about the same speed as the speaker, theoretically, you should always be okay, except you would always finish a little later than the speaker. You would talk through their pauses and pause when they started their next sentence. What did you do right this time? Did you keep your decollage? That's awesome. Did you skip less words? That's awesome. Build on that. And what was challenging this time? Was it the fact that it was a longer simultaneous? If that's the case, maybe we need to build our stamina. Simultaneous also has to do with stamina. It is very taxing for your brain. You get tired. Studies show that when people interpret in the simultaneous mode, about 30 minutes in, they get fatigued and their production and accuracy suffers. So by building 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, by building up our stamina, we will be able to keep our accuracy up to 30 to 45 minutes. Let's start our self-evaluation. First, find your last recording. That was simultaneous 2. Listen to your performance first. Remember, first we just want to listen and think. How does the interpreter, you, sound? And now, change shoes. Put yourself in the shoes of the listener. If you were listening to this interpreter, do you understand? Is it clear what the interpreter is saying? Does it make sense? If I had never heard this before, and I heard it for the first time in this language, would I be able to then tell people what I was hearing? Does it make sense? Now let's start with the markings. We're gonna end the recording one more time. Go get your simultaneous script 2 before you start. And this time, you're gonna put on your headset. You're gonna listen to your recording this time, your performance, but you're gonna have the script in front of you. And obviously script number 2 will have scoring units on the script. You will be reading the script while you're listening. And as you are listening, you pay attention to everything, but specifically you mark scoring units. If you skipped a scoring unit in its entirety or part of it, you should put it in parentheses. If you said something for any of the scoring units, you should write down exactly what you said in the target language for each scoring unit. Remember, you're not writing down everything, just what you said for the scoring units, nothing else. Remember, you're not evaluating. You're not trying to figure out if that was right or this was wrong. You're just marking your script at this point. Your script at the end should have no check marks or crossing out anything. If it's necessary, pause the playback so you can finish writing down what you said for each scoring unit, to put your parentheses to make sure that you mark your script completely. And of course, keep your recording and your marked script. This time, we're also going to rate your performance. And how do we do that? We use dictionaries and other resources to decide if each one of the scoring units you interpreted is correct or not. In other words, I have my script now. I see my first scoring unit number 1. It has a word in English, and I wrote above it what I said in the other language. Now I'm going to go to a dictionary, to a glossary, or to the appropriate source and figure out if what I said is correct or incorrect according to the dictionary. Pay attention to which dictionary you're using. If it's a legal term, it's better to use a legal dictionary. If you're not sure, you should use a monolingual dictionary to look for the source language meaning first, and then the bilingual dictionary to confirm. It's very important that you remember what Ronald Reagan used to say: trust but verify. Many times we think we know for sure how to say something, and we've been saying it for so long that we're convinced it's correct. But as many of my students have told me, and I have discovered myself, no matter how convinced you are, no matter how sure you are, sometimes you can be wrong. It's important that as an exercise, even if you're 100% sure, you must verify every one of the scoring units. Of course, if you skipped anything, if any of the scoring units is in parentheses, you simply cross it out. Based on your research and having decided if any of the scoring units was incorrect, you're going to cross out any of them, any scoring unit that you discovered to be incorrect. Now, you're going to count how many mistakes you made. That includes skip scoring units and scoring units that were interpreted incorrectly. Both together, that's your number of mistakes. You're going to subtract the number of mistakes from the total number of scoring units in that script. Finally, you're going to divide the number you obtain by subtracting the mistakes from the total, and you're going to divide it by the total number of scoring units in the script. The result is your average score for the exercise. Let me give you an example. Assume that you had a simultaneous exercise with 40 scoring units. You omitted 5 scoring units and incorrectly interpreted 8 more. The total number of incorrect scoring units in that exercise is 13. Unlucky 13. If you subtract 13 from 40, the number is 27. And if you divide 27 by 40, the original number of scoring units in the script, your result is 0.675 or 67.5% accuracy. And that is how you rate your performance. Now, this is very valuable information. It's telling you an objective score for this particular exercise. And you need to start mining that information. Based on what you discovered, you have to start thinking, the mistakes I made, for instance, if I skip words, was it because I didn't know how to say the word? That would be a vocabulary problem. Or I did know how to say the word, I just skipped it because I was way behind, I didn't hear it, or I forgot. That's a technique problem. With information about these two issues, now you're in the learning zone. How do I learn from these mistakes? If it's a vocabulary issue, I need to get a stronger vocabulary in that area. If it's a technique issue, most likely it's because you haven't improved your décollage enough. So now you develop your plan. When you sit down, you write down specific, measurable, and achievable objectives. If we take the example we had before of 67.5 accuracy, guess what? To pass the oral examination, you need to get at least a 70% accuracy. So you're 2.5 points away from getting the minimum in an exercise, which means in a test you probably are about 5 to 8 points away. What does that mean? I suggest to my interpreters to feel comfortable on the results when they're attaining in their exercise above 80% accuracy. Because we tend, believe it or not, to be very nice to ourselves, and we give ourselves a lot of breaks when we're rating ourselves. So you should get above 80% in your own rating to have a shot at getting 70% on the exam. It has to be achievable, it has to be measurable, and it has to be specific. And of course, you're going to map the content topics to specific objectives. Am I increasing my vocabulary, or am I doing something challenging to improve my performance and improve my décollage? Speaking about décollage, I am challenging you to do a 3-week challenge. Your plan should include a 3-week challenge. It's not like that old bucket thing over the head with water and ice. This is a 3-week challenge that I guarantee, if you follow, you will notice a tremendous improvement in your performance in the simultaneous mode. How does it work? Here it is, the 3-week challenge. It's all based on shadowing. Remember, shadowing is very important because we want to develop our décollage. And shadowing in non-English is going to allow me to improve my performance by A, cutting down on code switching, number 2, practicing words in non-English, and number 3, putting most of my brain power on improving my décollage. Décollage is it. The better the décollage, the better the interpreter. So you should be shadowing non-English. So what do I recommend? I recommend you find a script that has about 1,000 words that is written in non-English, whatever your target is when you're doing simultaneous interpretation. Find that script originally written in that language, and then ask somebody who is a native speaker of that language to read it for you, to actually record it for you, so you can keep that recorded. Make sure you ask somebody who is a good reader, who will follow instructions, and who will help you by speaking slowly but clearly. Whatever your target language is, you get your recording. If you don't have any native speakers to read a script, you might be able to find something already available on the internet in your language of expertise. And I found that there's TED Talks in many languages and other speeches in other languages that have the script available to you. However you get your recording, you must have 8 minutes of a native speaker of non-English speaking non-English. Once you have selected what media are you going to use to play back, you put on your headset and you're going to start working on your décollage. This is a 3-week challenge. So what do you do on week 1? On week 1, on day 1, you're just going to shadow. You put on your headset, you listen, and you shadow in non-English. Do it for about 8 minutes. Record yourself, always, and then listen to your recording. See how it sounds. How does it feel? Do you sound rushed? Maybe you should repeat it a couple of times until you feel comfortable shadowing. What do you do day 2? Day 2, you're going to shadow, but you're going to introduce décollage, which means you're going to let the person speaking say about 3 words, and then you're going to jump in. So now you're 3 words behind, and you're going to actively pursue the idea of staying at least 3 words behind the speaker. It doesn't have to be exactly 3, but about 3. And see if you can keep that up for 8 minutes. Always record yourself, and at the end, listen to your performance. See what's going on. Are you rushing? Are you staying behind? If somebody would come and stop the recording at any time without you knowing that it was going to stop, would you say 3 words? If you don't, that means you lost your décollage. What do you do on day 3? You're going to shadow, but you're going to attempt to increase your décollage to 5 words. And days 4 to 7, you're going to shadow and increase the number of words. I would suggest, if you can stay to 7 words. If you can get to 7 words, that would be a good challenge. Now remember, shadowing is not about a specific number of words. Shadowing is based on chunking. But this exercise is to help you train your brain to learn to stay behind the speaker. It's not about interpreting, it's all about décalage. Décalage is it. Learn to stay behind the speaker. If you do this challenge every day for the first 7 days, by day 7, you should be feeling pretty comfortable doing shadowing with décalage. And here comes week 2. During week 2, we're going to do something called dual task. And as the name suggests, we're going to do 2 things at the same time. We are still going to shadow, but this time we're going to have a notebook and a pen in front of us. And the first day, we're going to shadow with décalage, because by now our décalage is pretty solid. So we're going to shadow with décalage, but on our notebook, we're going to write down the numbers from 1 to 100. While you're shadowing with décalage, you're writing down the numbers. Why is that? Again, we're training your brain to complete 2 tasks simultaneously. Because after all, what's the name of this mode? Simultaneous interpretation. What do you do the next day? The next day, you do the odd numbers from 1 to 101. Now, some people ask me, well, what if I get to 100, I haven't finished? You have 2 choices. You can keep on going, or you can go back to 1. Either one works. Day 2, you get to 101, you can keep on going on odd numbers, or you can go back and start from 1 again. Day 3, you're going to shadow with décalage, and you're going to do your even numbers from 2 to 100. Day 4, you're going to shadow with décalage, but this time, instead of writing numbers, you're going to write down the alphabet. What alphabet? You choose. It could be the English alphabet, the Spanish alphabet, the Cyrillic alphabet, any alphabet you want to use, the Greek alphabet, any alphabet at all. The important part of this is that it has to be an organized alphabet to follow. Ready for day 5? Now you're going to shadow with décalage, but you're going to skip the vowels. This is a lot of fun because you have to really concentrate what follows after what letters. At this point, we're going to get to day 6. Day 6 is the fun one because now you're going to shadow with décalage. But while you're shadowing with décalage, you're going to write down your name, your address, and your social security number in that order. If you don't like to write down your social security number, you could write down your phone number or any 10-digit number. Remember, you're shadowing with décalage and writing these things. Day 7, what do? You do all of the above, meaning you put on your headset, you start listening, you start shadowing, and you start with the numbers. 1 to 100. You get there, switch to odds. If you finish to 101, switch to evens. If you finish and it hasn't been 8 minutes, start with the alphabet, then the consonants, then do as many of the previous exercises as you can fit in your 8-minute practice. Now remember, during week 2, every time you do this, you should be recording yourself and listening to your performance. You need to get to a point where you feel comfortable writing and shadowing with décalage. This might mean that each day you might have to repeat the exercise more than once. It doesn't matter. Remember, repetition is necessary for learning. Also remember that by the end of week 2, you should be pretty proficient on décalage and doing a second task. By the way, I should mention that in many groups that I teach, about 10% of the people report that when they're doing the dual task, instead of being more difficult, they find it easier to shadow. That's not surprising to me because I've heard it many times. Some people feel more comfortable doing a second task because that kind of centers them, keeps them focused. I'm a very anxious person. I walk around a lot when I'm talking, and if I'm interpreting in the simultaneous mode, I find it very soothing to have a notebook and doodle. Not necessarily anything specific like numbers or alphabet, but I just doodle quite a bit just to keep myself focused. So you might actually have discovered a way to stay focused while you're doing simultaneous. I know of many interpreters that doodle while they're doing simultaneous interpretation. That's the end of week 2. What do we do week 3? Week 3, we're going to do something that is familiar to us. You see, I told you, sight translation and simultaneous are kissing cousins, because this exercise we already know because we did it for sight translation. Except this time, instead of doing it by just reading, we'll be shadowing. On week 3, you're going to shadow with décalage. By the way, you don't need to write down anything anymore unless you find it focusing or fun or interesting. You're going to shadow with décalage, and the first day, see if you can shadow with décalage and change one word every 30 seconds. It could be one word or two words that combined make a specific saying. Your Honor, for instance, instead of judge. One word every 30 seconds. But remember, you have to do this without stopping your shadowing and your décalage. And you're going to discover pretty quickly that you cannot really do a good job of word meaning substitution unless you have décalage. Décalage is it. The better the décalage, the better the interpreter. And each day of the third week, you should attempt to change or substitute more words in less time. By day 7, you should give it a try to shadow with décalage and substitute as many words as possible. And think about it. If you were able to shadow with décalage and replace every word or every group of words for a different word or group of words that meant the same, isn't that simultaneous? Simultaneous is word meaning substitution into another language. This is your challenge. Find the time. I promise you, if you do these exercises, if you practice continuously, at the end of this challenge, you should redo all of your simultaneous exercises and now interpret simultaneously, and you will notice a big difference. So good luck in your endeavors. Thank you very much.